I do think Drew Brees is one of the best players to never win an MVP.
You can talk about talent, and you bring up Patrick Mahomes and some of the other greats like Elway and Manning. From a talent standpoint, I hear you. Drew Brees is a shade over 6 feet tall. Okay, Drew Brees is not the most athletically gifted guy ever. But if we're talking about the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, how can you not put Drew Brees in that category?
He absolutely, unquestionably has earned a seat at the table when we have the conversation of greatest of all times.
When you think about the QBs that define the 2000s, you think of Brady and Manning. But don't you dare forget about Drew Brees. He earned his seat at the table alongside Peyton and Tom. And he may always be mentioned third, but he has to be mentioned. Brees was an undersized QB who consistently outperformed expectations, overcame early struggles and an injury that should have derailed his career, helped rebuild a community, and found a way to deliver one of the greatest quarterback careers in NFL history. It's not his fault that he played in an era with some of the best passers the league has ever seen, or that the Saints rarely had a well-rounded squad.
Look at me, son. It's not your fault.
Brees delivered year in and year out in New Orleans, and he helped redefine the franchise's legacy. He was leaned on heavily, asked to carry his team to relevancy, and he found a way to do it. In most other eras, he would have a case as the best of his time, but not in his. In his, he never even won an MVP. And this is life when you are the other guy in your generation.
If you are a bad guy, but this does not mean you're a bad guy.
Welcome back to Unlikely Success. Like, comment, and if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Today, we're diving into why Drew Brees is thought of as the other guy of his generation and what his impact on the league actually was. Let's start with what initially triggered doubts about Brees, and that's his size.
Does not possess the ideal height you look for in a pro passer.
There we go.
Oh, what?
There we go.
I didn't think that was coming.
Nearly every draft profile on him mentions that he was shorter than a prototypical QB. You would have thought he was Frodo from Lord of the Rings or something. His time at the University of Purdue had been a massive success, as he set 19 passing records for the school, was a Heisman finalist twice, and led the team to 3 straight top 25 finishes. With over 10,000 yards and 80 touchdowns over his 3 full seasons starting, he thrived in the Purdue spread offense. But this was part of the problem. Brees' head coach, Joe Tiller, had brought in an offense that would be coined basketball on grass, and the concept was pretty straightforward. Spread the defense by using 3, 4, or 5 wide receiver sets, and take advantage of the open space by creating one-on-one mismatches with the defense. It was a far cry from the traditional Big Ten style of football, but it was very effective. The downside, though, was it created skepticism around Drew Brees' ability to translate to the NFL. After all, he was basically a hobbit throwing quick short and intermediate passes designed to exploit talent gaps at the collegiate level. Who cares if he displayed incredible accuracy and timing? He's not 6'4" and 240 pounds, and that's all that matters, right? Oddly enough, the unquestioned number 1 pick in that draft was roughly the same size as Brees, but he had insane athleticism and a cannon for an arm. If you're wondering, that was Michael Vick. And Vick was who the Chargers had their eyes on, but they had not been able to agree to a pre-draft contract, and this caused the team to trade the first pick rights to Atlanta for the number 5 overall pick, a 3rd rounder, and a 2nd round pick in the following year's draft. The Chargers would select LaDainian Tomlinson with the first pick acquired, and take Drew Brees with their own pick at the top of the 2nd round. Who knows what Vick may have been in San Diego, but I would say a first ballot Hall of Fame running back was a pretty good consolation prize. While LT was having success with the Chargers, Brees' time with the team was up and down. He made only a single appearance as a rookie, started every game in his 2nd year, going 8-8 with 17 touchdowns and 16 picks, and got benched mid-season after a terrible start to his 3rd year, where he showed clear signs of regression, throwing 11 touchdowns and 15 interceptions, and the team went 2-9. In his 11 starts that year. In today's NFL climate, there's almost no chance that Brees survives his rookie contract, right? I'm just thinking about all the rookie QBs of the last few years that struggled. They were labeled as busts, and they head towards backup purgatory. Let me know what you think, though. All of the early struggles led to San Diego drafting Phillip Rivers in 2004 with the 4th overall pick, sending a clear message. Drew Brees' days as the Chargers starter were limited.
Screw you! You're fired!
He would respond to the pick by winning Comeback Player of the Year, make his first Pro Bowl, post the best numbers of his career, and lead the team to an AFC West division title. After the season, the Chargers would franchise tag Brees, and this was a surprising move, as it left Rivers to sit for one more year. Drew's stats would regress slightly, but the biggest event of 2005 would come in the last game of the season for him, as he went to recover a fumble and wound up with a torn labrum and rotator cuff damage. This could not have been worse timing for him. He was entering free agency as an injured QB who had been developing, but now, who knew what his future looked like? I mean, we actually know now, but back then, there were real concerns. San Diego offered him a $50 million contract that was laced with performance-based incentives and carried only a $2 million base salary, which would have been what he was making on his rookie deal. It was effectively a slap in the face. The Miami Dolphins, then coached by Nick Saban, passed on him after their doctors gave him only a 25% chance of playing again. Yes, you heard that right.
25% chance of playing again.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
This all created a butterfly effect that wound up changing the face of college football, the Miami Dolphins, Dallas Cowboys, and New Orleans forever. Saban would leave the Dolphins after the 2006 season, in a move that has largely been attributed to Miami not signing Brees. Alabama football should probably send a gift basket to the Dolphins medical staff. It's the least they could do at this point. It probably seems like the Saints were pursuing Drew as their primary target, but that's not what they have actually been rumored to have been doing. If rumors are true, Sean Payton was actually trying to get a young, undrafted player from the Cowboys that he had been coaching, Tony Romo. You probably hear him these days on Sundays.
So look at this, Jim. This is like how you ran in high school. Look at that. Perfect form, extension.
A trade could not be worked out for him though, and the Saints would offer Drew Brees a 6-year, $60 million deal that changed their franchise for the next 15 years. This is an interesting sliding doors moment to me. Do you think Romo becomes an NFL Hall of Fame player in the Saints system? What do you think would have happened to Drew Brees?
Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no.
Just food for thought, because Brees was about to go on a tear that would last over a decade. He would be the first quarterback to throw for 80,000 yards, have consecutive 40-plus touchdown seasons, 12 consecutive 4,000-plus yard passing seasons, missing his 13th by less than 10 yards, and 5 of those were 5,000-yard passing seasons. And nearly all of this was accomplished after doctors were unsure if he would ever play again. Brees has talked pretty openly about how doubts from the medical staffs and teams passing on him became the ultimate motivation for him, and it showed in his performance year after year. It actually became the Saints' identity, alongside the offensive genius of head coach Sean Payton. The Saints had famously been dubbed the Aints due to their lack of success as a franchise. From 1967 to 2005, New Orleans made 5 total playoff appearances, and they won a single playoff game. You heard that right. 1 playoff game.
Is this bad? Is this bad?
From 2006 to 2020, they won 9. In 2006, Brees would start his streak of 4,000-yard passing seasons, led the Saints to their first ever NFC title game, earned his second Pro Bowl nod, first All-Pro selection, and entered the MVP picture for the first time in his career. 2007 would be a step back statistically for Brees and the team overall, as they missed the playoffs, but after an 0-4 start, they would finish 7-5 down the stretch. 2008 was a shame, as Brees had his first ever 5,000-yard passing season and 34 touchdowns, but it was not a complete team, as the defense finished its second straight year in the bottom third of the NFL, while the offense finished as the league's best in scoring and yards. Things can turn quickly though, and 09 would prove just that. The Saints would go 13-3, capture the number 1 seed in the NFC, have the league's number 1 offense for a second straight season, and do something that had seemed implausible in NOLA. They won the Super Bowl. The 2009 Super Bowl win meant more to a community than any in history. Brees had another great season, with more than 4,300 passing yards, over a 70% completion rate, 34 touchdowns, and what probably should have been an MVP award. He finished second to Peyton Manning, but this was the year that Drew should have gotten his MVP when you look back. But lifting the Lombardi was far more impactful. The Saints did not have a winning tradition, and after Hurricane Katrina had ravaged the community, it meant more than football to see the team's first ever championship. It's a moment that solidified Drew Brees as a legend in the area and his NFL legacy. And it's a good thing they won that ring. From 2010 to 2016, the Saints would miss the playoffs 4 times, all with bottom 5 defenses, and they leaned heavily on their star QB. Brees threw for over 5,000 yards in 4 of these 7, and nearly 5,000 in the other 3. He made the Pro Bowl in 6 of them, but it didn't matter because the defense wasn't good enough to win games. It was a shame the team was not more well-rounded because their offense was truly elite. And had they not won the 2009 Super Bowl, it's likely they would be remembered very differently. Even still, the 2006 to 2016 Saints were heavily carried by Brees' greatness. This is what defines New Orleans reframing their franchise. From 2017 to 2020, they would make the playoffs 4 times, and one of them felt like maybe they should have made it to the Super Bowl. As a Rams fan, I don't feel this way, but I can see how one might.
This guy knows what I'm talking about.
Moving into the last part of the 2010s, Brees had entered a different portion of his career after the NFC Championship loss to the Rams, and the last 2 seasons were nowhere near the dominance he had shown for over a decade with the Saints. As injuries caught up to him, he would retire after the 2020 season, which had been plagued by broken ribs and diminished arm strength. For his career, Brees was a 5-time All-Pro, 13-time Pro Bowler, and 4-time MVP runner-up. The last part is crucial to understanding why Brees ends up being remembered behind Brady and Manning, possibly even Rodgers, depending on who you ask. But he should have won it in 2009, and the other years, he happened to be upstaged by insane seasons from Hall of Fame players in his generation. At the time of his retirement, Drew Brees was the first quarterback to ever throw for over 80,000 yards, had 5 of the 12 5,000-yard seasons that had ever been thrown for, the only QB with 12 consecutive 4,000-yard passing seasons, and the most 4 and 5+ passing touchdown games. The greatest quarterbacks are judged by their stats and performances, but public opinion on them is shaped by winning records and Super Bowl rings, at least when it comes to national media. This only tells part of the story though, because as impactful as a QB can be, wins are a team stat, and some teams are too imbalanced to compete for Super Bowls. That's a reality that gets forgotten in many conversations about the greatest quarterback of all time. Few QBs have truly carried their franchise to a Super Bowl victory without a top-tier defense, and Drew was one of them. If you were simply to switch the teams Brady and Brees played for, how different are their careers? Drew will always be considered lower on all-time lists than Peyton or Tom, but his career is top 10 ever. His success as an undersized QB paved the way for Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and even Bryce Young. He led the Saints with class, and he never caused controversy. He overcame injuries, being benched, and his replacement being drafted while he was still on the roster. Brees was the kind of guy you want to run your business, delivering overperforming results and giving you 0 headaches, while having unmatched grit and determination to succeed. He may have entered the league with questions about his stature, but he left it casting a larger shadow than anyone besides him may have ever imagined. This has been the unlikely success.
We're talking about a guy, there's 11 times in the history of the NFL has a quarterback thrown for 5,000 yards in a single season. Drew Brees has done it 5 times. He's got the greatest completion percentage in the history of the NFL. 6 out of the top 9 seasons Drew Brees has. There's been 3 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that have a QBR of 70 or more. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees.